Well, we could talk about cucumbers, but let's talk song. Dear YouTube community, I hear you. I promise you that there will be less Gen Z pop music analysis in the foreseeable future. Instead, I decided to feature more late 90s, early 2000s rock pop songs, something that I have a feeling you might like. Today, we are going to look at Jimmy Eat World's classic, The Middle, and I'm going to change the format a little bit. I'm going to look at 3 don'ts and 3 do's when looking at the songwriting of Jimmy Eat World's The Middle, so let's get going. Don't write yourself off yet. It's only you knew how to feel left out or looked down on. Just try your best. Try everything you can. And don't you worry what they tell themselves when you're away. It just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. Hey, you know they're all the same. You know you're doing better on your own. So don't buy in. Live right now and just be yourself. It doesn't matter if it's good enough for someone else. It just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. It just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. Don't write yourself off yet. It's only in your head you feel left out or looked down on. Just do your best. Do everything you can. And don't you worry what their bitter hearts are gonna say. It just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. It just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. The first songwriting don't is don't screw up your first lyric line. Hey, don't write yourself off yet is something that takes a while to understand. And why is that? Because the phrasing is kind of off. The stresses and the pronunciation of the words is not 100% where it's supposed to be. If we look at the stresses, it's hey, don't write yourself off yet. So we've got stresses on the hey, on the self, and on the yet. Now, if we look at the phrase in the way that we would pronounce it in conversational language, it would rather be, hey, don't write yourself off yet. So we would have the stress, the pronunciation on the off, something that doesn't get adequate stress in Jimmy Eat World's The Middle. I can immediately give you 4 easy fixes for that line number 1, without changing the meaning at all, but improving the pronunciation and the word stress. Suggestion number 1, hey, don't write it off just yet. Not yourself, but it, right? It doesn't really change the meaning. Hey, don't write it off just yet. That way we would pronounce the off. Version number 2, hey, don't give it up just yet. Version number 3, hey, don't hang your head just yet. Version number 4, hey, don't let it go just yet. Things that mean the same thing, that put the stress on the right syllables, and that I think would help identify with the very first line of your song. Don't number 2, which I admit is very closely related to don't number 1. Don't number 2 is don't make your first verse your worst verse. What do I mean with this? If we look at the 3 lines that form verse number 1, we see, hey, don't write yourself off yet, something that we've already talked about. It's only in your head you feel left out. This is 2 sentence phrases combined within one melodic phrase. Not very elegant. It's only in your head you feel left out. It's 2 different things. Yes, it makes sense to have a longer melodic line, but not if that means that you kind of have to fit in 2 sentences that should have a clear full stop between them within one melodic phrase. And line number 3 commits the same sin that line number 1 already committed, which is to put stresses on the wrong syllables, or looked down on. Conversational language would be or looked down on. Pronunciation or stress on the down and not on the looked and on, right? So it's, hey, don't write yourself off yet. It's only in your head you feel left out, or looked down on. The thing is that all other verses make perfect sense and don't make those mistakes. So for example, if we look at verse number 2 that says, just try your best, try everything you can, and don't you worry what they'll tell themselves when you're away. Everything makes perfect sense, and pretty much the other verses do exactly the same. They are written very, very carefully, and the first verse, the one that's most important to get your reader's attention, is so careless. Don't. Don't number 3, and you will see that all 3 don'ts are related to lyric writing. Something that I'm very picky about, you might have realized that already. Don't hide your title of the song in the middle of the chorus. Or is it prosody? I'm not really sure. The song is called The Middle, and the word the middle is hidden somewhere in the chorus. It just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. I think I wasn't aware of the song title and of the presence of the song title in the chorus until I started analyzing that song in the year 2023. And I've been listening to that song for over 20 years. So apparently this didn't really stick with me. It's a great song, very memorable, but not for the fact that it has a very present song title. Don't hide your title in the middle of the chorus. But if this song is so terribly written, why is it still so popular? That's because it features 3 pretty strong do's of songwriting as well. Do number 1 is be comfortable with simple chord progressions. Let's look at the main chord progression that the verse and the chorus uses. D, A, G, and D. In terms of chord functions, chord stage degrees, we are looking at 1, 5, 4, 1. This would almost have been a reason for me to avoid that song analysis, because I thought, well, this is the most common bluesy chord progression that you can find. It's not really important to analyze a very, very simplistic punky, bluesy chord progression that is just 1, 4, 5, 1. Or is it? Because it's not 1, 4, 5, 1, it's 1, 5, 4, 1. And I talked about this the other day with Henning Pauli and Sebastian Filippi, and I said, I'm not really sure what other songs use 1, 5, 4, 1 chord progressions. They said, well, it's probably some Ramones song that did 1, 4, 5 in all its variations. Admittedly, my research was not very thorough, But I can tell you that I haven't found a song, neither in the Ramones discography nor in pop music history throughout, that uses 1-4-5-1 where every chord gets one bar. With two exceptions. One is the second verse half of Let It Be, that famously uses the 1-5-6 minor 4 progression, the axis of awesome. If we listen to the second half of the verse, there we see that it's 1-5-4-1. Let's listen to Let It Be chorus really quickly, that I'm going to play in D so that you see the similarities. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Okay, 1-5-6 minor 4, but then 1-5-4-1. The other example that I found is Bad Moon Rising by CCR, but in that case, the 5 and the 4 are played very quickly after each other and don't fill out a complete bar. It's that one. I see a bad moon rising. And it's basically the verse, throughout the verse, that we hear this 1-4-5-1 thingy, with the exception that the chords are not distributed equally throughout the bars. Do number 1. Be comfortable with simple chord progressions because they might actually be something new. Do number 2. Use melodic contrast if you use the same progression in the verse and the chorus. We are going to look at the melody of the verse first, and after that we are going to look at the melody of the chorus. The verse melody together with the chords is... So, very simple. The 1 of the chord, the 3 of the chord. That's quite cool because it features the 9 of the G chord. And then we have landing on the 5 of the chord, something that we change when we leave the verse. So landing on the 5 of the chord mid-verse is a very good idea, because then you call for repetition, and at the end of the verse you resolve by landing on the 1. It's when you're away, suddenly you land on the 1 and you build up towards the chorus. In terms of melodic rhythm, we see that the first note is on the downbeat on the 1 of the verse. It's that hey, it's almost a wake-up call, right? A hey, hey. And then we have got a lot of long pickups that always go to the 1. Don't write yourself off yet, the 1 of the beat. It's only in your head you feel left out. Here we prolong it a little bit. I'll look down on. Basically, it's a melodic phrase that builds up towards the downbeats. The chorus is totally different. When we look at the melody notes first, it's... So, 3 of the D major chord, 5 of the A major chord, 5 of the G major chord, 1 of the D major chord. Suddenly we move everything in the melody up approximately a third, which makes a lot of sense. To create contrast between your verse and the chorus, it makes sense to have the chorus slightly higher, ideally a third, than your verse. Another big contrast is the melodic rhythm, because we do everything starting from the downbeat and not landing on the downbeat. So it just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride, everything will be just fine. So the downbeat this time is the beginning of the phrase, and we see that compared to the verse, it's very, very wordy and rushed with a lot of eighth notes. Whereas the verse melody had a lot of rests. Hey, don't write yourself off yet, and so on and so forth. So two very, very contrasting elements. Number one, the melodic shape, the melodic position, and number two, the melodic rhythm. Very good idea. Do mind melodic contrast when you have one chord progression for two different sections of your song. Do number three, if you have a solo and you have not got a primary bridge, write your solo as if it were your primary bridge. That means make sure to change the chord progression. That means make sure to change the melody, of course, but also make sure to build up towards the last verse or chorus, depending on what's next. We are going to look at the solo and going to analyze what elements of primary bridge that solo actually features. Element number one, chord progression, is different from verse and chorus. A, D. So 5-1. Repeat. Then we have G and D, and then we stay on the A. With that very, very cool 3-3-3-3-2-2 rhythm in the arrangement. So we had 5-1-5-1-4-1-5-5, something that creates a lot of contrast to verse and chorus before, but also builds up very much towards the last verse. This is this very relaxed last verse that repeats actually the worst verse, the first one, the hey, don't write yourself off yet. And the solo works in that case as a bridge, as a build-up towards that last verse. Also, of course, the solo, the guitar solo, is very memorable. I haven't played it in the cover because I simply wasn't able to, but I think we all know the shape of that solo because it's very emblematic. Let me play you a very, very poor simulation of this guitar solo. I'm sorry about that, but what you could clearly see is that the solo, yes, it has got quite a big span in terms of melody notes, but it features things that you can actually sing along, that you can hum along. This something that we have heard so many times, but that actually is quite characteristic. And this, of course, also builds a lot of contrast to the verse and the chorus, things that actually are a main feature in the primary bridge. I guess this is it. As always, if you liked this, make sure to give me the thumbs up. Also, leave me comments what you think of that new video format with the 3 don'ts and the 3 do's. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done yet, and also use the comment function to give me suggestions for songs that you would like me to react to cover, and to analyze. I guess we've talked song, you can talk about cucumbers now. Don't number 1.
3.
Du müsstest hier vor die Kamera, du bist witziger als ich. Don't number 2.